are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
Hey everybody, this is Hater Radio. My name is Chris McLean. I'm here with my co-host Ian Gibson. How are you, Ian?
I'm doing good, man. As good as I can be.
Yeah, considering what happened. So obviously we're going to talk about that first. So let's dive into it. I was totally expecting like some effort this weekend, just a little bit of effort, but I don't even really want to talk about the game. Let's talk more about where the team is heading and the fact that, at this point, Billy Napier is essentially fired. And, this is just like, I don't know what we're doing right now. I don't know why they haven't fired him this morning. It's pretty much going to be the case, in the next couple of days. I'm thinking probably by I don't know, maybe next week. I don't know. They have Mississippi State this week, and then a bye week, and then UCF. So could be anywhere from those point in times. It doesn't matter though, because it's a $26 million buyout, which I think is the second largest buyout ever behind Jimbo Fisher's buyout. So it's a large buyout, but it's clearly gone downhill. The defense it's a joke. I mean, that was a backup quarterback in this A&M game, and he had never played any action at all. And he looked like he was a savvy vet of an NFL veteran. And he just, picked apart the Florida defense, and he was running all over them. They couldn't stop him. And then, Florida's offense was so anemic at first. It was down 21-0 at half. I mean, I don't recall a worse half, maybe that Oregon State bowl game, but again, that's Billy's fault. So, I think for the longest time was willing to accept the bumps and bruises that were going on, because there was a lot of, talent deficit on the roster. But as the time has gone on, as we have gotten further and further away from Dan Mullen, it's more on Billy Napier, and it is clear that he's in over his head. The defensive and offensive lines are weak and ineffective. There's no pass rush and there's no protection for the quarterbacks. I know the whole thing coming into this game was Mertz or Lagway, and Mertz actually played better in this game than I thought he was going to play when he got called upon, but still he had no time. He had a hard hit at one point that looked like he was going to get taken out of the game, and he still stayed in. Just a pathetic showing. I know you've called for it. You said it was going to be a 4-8 year, and Ian, you were right. You were right on the nose. It may even be worse than that, which is remarkable to say. As a Florida fan, it's just frustrating. And I know, on Twitter X, it's like a big, back and forth about people being pissed off about this. It's like, it is what it is. As Florida fans, we've gone through this 5 times in the last 12 years or whatever it is. I don't know what the exact stat is, but it's been a lot over the last decade plus. And it's been frustrating because, we were at a standard from the 90s and 2000s where it was winning SEC championship games and then having legitimate chances at national championships and winning those. And then all of a sudden it got taken away. And now it's, this is even worse than that, because it's at least the last, Mullen beforehand, almost every coach seemingly got to the SEC championship game except for Muschamp, but he was close in the one year that they went 11-1 in that regular season. It befuddles me to have the talent level, because there is talent on this roster. There's no denying that. And I'm willing to admit that, because there are plenty of people on this team that I can see making a difference if there is a coaching change, which there will be. And, it's frustrating because they should be playing better. The offense has a ton of skill players, wide receivers wise. They have a ton of guys. And yet on Saturday, one of the things that would stood out the most to me, I just saw the snap totals for different receivers, and the walk-on Spirito, and nothing against him, but why did he have around 30 snaps when this game was still in question? And I don't know. I guess they were playing him because they were so far behind, but it's still it just blows my mind that you didn't give it to more to Aiden Mizell, giving more playing time. He's still a young guy. He's a guy that can show off, but he had 20 snaps. Should have had way more. Just a frustrating day, frustrating season already. We're 3 games in and the season's already over. And I'll put this posit out. I mean, I've seen it out there, but it's Urban Meyer is just, working for Fox right now. I know what would help alleviate some of these, bad blood with everybody is fire Billy, which they rightfully should do, but bring in Urban to be the interim coach. I'm sure he would want to redeem himself a little bit in Florida's eyes. And I think all of us would love to see it, just at least to try to resurrect this season. That's at 1-2, but you never know what can happen if you put in the right pieces. And, Urban is definitely a way better piece than, whatever interim coach that's on the staff right now, because I don't want Ron Roberts. He's obviously a terrible defensive coach. And, I think Dan Enos was mentioned. None of those guys. If I'm going to do anything, bring in Urban, let him finish off the year. I don't expect him to be hired as the full-time coach, but at least give us some kind of hope, because, we're 3 games in. We have 9 games left. I do not want to see a death march of being destroyed for 9 straight games. But Ian, your thoughts, and we'll move on.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to be too long-winded with this because it's the same stuff I have literally been saying now for almost 2 years. I want to put this in perspective. When Napier does get fired, whenever it be, hopefully it's sooner rather than later, I got a text from my old video production professor who has literally watched the Gators since he went to the university in this Spurrier time. He said he has never seen a team looked this bad and this poorly coached in his entire time watching the Florida Gators. And that, and I've said that I think Napier's the worst coach since Doug Dickey in the 70s.
Yeah, you did say that. You texted that to me. Well, I think it was the first game you texted.
It was, because this is so here's the thing. Napier has nobody to blame but himself. And we wouldn't even be this upset. I remember there's a lot of people of other fan bases criticizing the Florida fan base for driving coaches out of town, in some cases rightfully so. But there is an expectation here that you need to improve, and the standard does change when you're the coach season by season. What Napier had to do, we understood, me and you both, and everybody knew, Napier, from all the Muschamp, McElwain, and Mullen, Napier started more behind the goalposts than any of them. I was willing to give year one a pass. I was like, look, you don't have that great a talent to beat these teams, but even then there were red flags. Terrible game against Kentucky, lost to Vanderbilt after blowing out South Carolina, and every chance Florida State was giving you to win that game, you blew it. Year 2, same thing. Terrible against Utah. They somehow, pull a win out against Tennessee, and then they completely, I honestly said, in my head, that Arkansas game when they lost that should have been when it was curtains, because there was
that probably should have been it.
There was no excuse to lose that game. They had everything going for them, and they got in their own way. And that's the thing. Everything he has promised has failed. There has been no difference from year 1 to year 3. They look the same, and they even look worse. That is more than enough reason to be kicked off the sideline, and more than a worthy enough reason for them to not even boo you on the field, but to boo your PSA on the Jumbotron. If I was there, I would be doing the same thing. And that's the thing, is there's no, people can get on the Gator fan base for these expectations. And rightfully, I'm not expecting a national championship every year, but I mean, you're in year 3 of your rebuild, and I'm not seeing anything better with your play calling. The hot potato between Lagway and Mertz and when to insert them was completely terrible. Same thing with, you should look from now on, if there's only going to be one thing, just start Lagway. I appreciate Mertz and everything he does, but Lagway is going to be your best chance to win these games. Mertz doesn't give you the same chance Lagway does. All in all, it's a shame, but honestly, let's not forget this should have never happened, because I knew very early Napier probably would not have been my choice after Mullen was fired, because he was way too new he did good in group of 5, but that's a big difference from the SEC. If you're going to blame anybody, blame Napier and his inept play calling and asset management. But you got to point the finger right back at Scott Strickland. This will be his 3rd coach he will hire, and that's unacceptable here at the University of Florida.
Yeah, and I think that is going to be what happens, because it just seems likely that they're going to clean house, because you do get like 2 opportunities as an athletic director to make it right on football hires, but like 3rd chance usually doesn't happen. Like usually when you strike out 3 times, you end up being let go. And I technically it's only twice, but still they don't give you a 3rd opportunity. If you strike out twice, that's pretty much it. And I will say, like, Jeremy Foley, he hired Ron Zook, failed, but then hit a home run with Urban Meyer, failed with Muschamp, and then I'm almost positive he was one behind McElwain.
He did hire McElwain.
But he was leaving, so it wasn't like, they didn't leave it on him. And plus, Scott Strickland was there when McElwain was fired, so Foley was gone at that point. But, I think they probably have to get rid of Strickland. I mean, so many fans on X just love to call out Strickland all the time, and I get it. It's what we do as fans. The fervor was a little like outrageous and psychotic in some ways, and I just really I kind of distance myself from it, because it's just like, I don't know what to really make of it. He struggled with his Mike White hire, but then he got Todd Golden. Golden seems to be turning it around. The baseball coach is doing well. He wasn't the head coach, he didn't hire the head coach for the baseball team, the manager, but I don't know. I know there's records out there saying how putrid Scott Strickland's hires have been. Yes, I think as a collective does not look great. I think because football is the most important hire, and if you failed twice already at it, that you don't get a 3rd opportunity. It's just seemingly what happens in every administration throughout the land of college football. So it seems likely that is probably why there's a delay, because there's a whole apparatus that needs to go. They need to get like a GM. They need to do like football operations stuff. They need to like really like make a vast hire here. And it's not just firing the head coach. There's going to be a lot of stuff going on. So maybe that's why it's going to take a while. But I was going to say, the high water mark of Billy Napier's career was literally that first game against Utah. And that was it. They won that game, and I was sky high. I was like, oh, they won. But I think I remember after the game, people talking about how it was like fool's gold. And I didn't listen. I was just so excited because, Anthony looked so good, and I was like, oh, this is great. We beat a top 10 team. You know, they ended up winning the Pac-12 that year. So it was like kind of a really big win, especially to start his tenure. And it just, everything from that point on, I think he ended up going like, I think he won like 10 more games after that or something like very low. And it's like 10 or 12 more games. I don't know, something very low. And like losing.
It would have been, so he's won 11 so far.
No,
Or
12 because he
12.
won the one last week.
So that would have
No,
been
more than that, because he won 6 the first year, 5. No, you're right, 12. So it's 12, and then he lost 7 last year, 14, and then 2. So he's lost 16 so far. So it's 112 and lost 16. So that point on, from that win, he went 11 and 16, and it's like, I don't know. I'm frustrated as a fan. I'm frustrated as like enjoyer of good football, because like growing up, Florida always played good football. There were frustrating losses, but they always played well enough to win, and they always were like well coached. Even under Urban Meyer, they were well coached. And it's a seemingly, since Muschamp, the offense has been kind of whatever, except for the few good years with Mullen as the offensive coach. But then the defense, the last like 5-6 years, has been non-existent, which that was a crucial part of the identity of Florida football. And now that is completely gone, both identities. So this is a completely identityless team that is not good on offense and is non-existent on defense. So you have something that is just a blase, show up, get your butt kicked every week, and it's like, it's not fun to watch. I mean, I know I told you yesterday, like, I didn't even watch the defense after they got the game to like 20-7, because I knew they were gonna like let them score, and they scored really the next play after getting the ball. Like, as Texas A&M got the ball, and I'm just like, this is disturbing. Like, it really is. Let's move on, because I could go on for this for hours. Okay, so we're gonna do a quick rundown of the week 3 games, and then we'll get Ian out of here because he's got somewhere to be. Okay, Arizona State, Texas State, back and forth game. Texas State went up early, and then Arizona State came back. Jordan McLeod looked really good in this game. He had really good numbers. 268, 4 TDs, had a pick. He also had 45 yards on the ground. They were up 21-7 at one point. That fumble loss at the end was basically a difference in the game.
Yep.
If they don't lose that game, they lose that ball there, they might have a chance of winning it. But Arizona State capitalizes, gets the field goal. And that was basically it. Your thoughts, and we'll move on.
Yeah, just really quick, you hit the nail on the head. Both teams actually went blow for blow. McLeod had a great game besides the interception, but the 3 turnovers the Bobcats made, it was just at the worst time, and Arizona State was able to exploit that Texas State secondary and was able to pull out in the end.
Okay, Arizona, Kansas State. Now, this is a sneaky good Kansas State team. They beat Tulane in New Orleans last week, and they come back beating a pretty talented Arizona team that is finding its way with a new coaching staff. But, Johnson looks great. Avery Johnson, can run the ball effectively. He's fast. They were up 28-7 into the 4th. They were pounding the ball big time, 235 yards on the ground to Arizona's 56. There was a punt return for a touchdown as well. This is a team that definitely is going to contend for the Big 12 championship. And then more than likely, if they keep things going, they have a chance of getting in the playoff, which I like their chances at this point, Kansas State, because even if they lose a game or two, I still think they're going to get in. They might even get like an at-large bid, if they don't win the Big 12 championship. But look out for this Kansas State team. Really effective, really good passing game, just efficient. Your thoughts, Ian?
Yeah, it's not only the fact of how they use Johnson, not only through the pass, but through the RPO game. It's also the fact, and this is something that has gone back since the Bill Snyder days of K-State. getting points without the offense. They returned that punt return for a touchdown of 71 yards. Last week, they had the touchdown off the fumble. Those are huge because that takes a lot of pressure off the offense and having to score. And K-State did it again this one, and that's something they need to keep continuing throughout this year.
Yeah, this Kansas State team is dangerous. Look out for them going forward. Okay, let's move on to Alabama, Wisconsin. Started off slow. Alabama looked like they were going to just sleepwalk into this game. It was 11 a.m. kickoff in
Madison.
Camp Randall. And, you know, who knows? Because Wisconsin's defense has been known to be decent over the last 10, 15 years. But Luke Fickell has taken over, so I don't know how good they are now. And, you know, once the dam broke, it was pretty much over for Alabama, for Wisconsin. And, you know, Tyler Van Dyke got hurt early. It was a beatdown. Wisconsin's just not on the same planet as Bama. Total yardage wasn't that much of a difference, but this game was never close because Alabama was able to take advantage of their opportunities while Wisconsin wasn't. What are your thoughts, Ian?
Yeah, same thing. They were able to take advantage when Van Dyke went down, and they just never looked back. Once Van Dyke went down, there wasn't a whole lot that Wisconsin can do because he was the glue to that offense, especially in the passing game. And the defense just took advantage of it. I know they got the 2 turnovers, and Milroe, you know, did a good game. Wisconsin's very like centralized in the box on defense, so all he had to do was just run to the outside, and he could, you know, find either open receivers or get the first down that way.
Yeah, Milroe went off, and then Ryan Williams, again, that's a name that if you don't know his name, you know, I saw him in person at the USF game last week. Kid's 17, will be 17 throughout the entirety of this season and should be in high school, but just destroying people out there. Kid is super fast, great hands. He's going to be someone that you see on Sundays for sure, and which sucks because he's being forced into having to play 3 years in college. But hey, he's going to make a ton of money at Alabama with NIL deals. So look to see him be, you know, I'd say like next year and the year after, a potential Heisman candidate. Okay, moving on. A great, exciting game that probably should have went South Carolina's way, but LSU sneaks it out. South Carolina was up 10. They blocked a punt. They were up 17-0. Like, I didn't even know this score was going on because I was what was I doing? I was in the middle of something. Oh, I had something with my local, with my union, so I wasn't able to pay attention till like as the game was over. Sellers made a huge play, a huge touchdown run, but he went out. But LSU's run game was very effective in this game, and they were getting up huge chunks and keeping them in this game. Back and forth game. You know, LSU went up 29-24. Then Rocket Sanders had a huge TD run, put them back up 30-29. A fumble lost, recovered by South Carolina, leads to a field goal. LSU goes down and gets a touchdown. They're up 36-33. And then a last-second field goal by South Carolina goes wide left. And just a crazy game. Like, there was like a pick six that was called back because of a personal foul that was like just the player blocking Nussmeier. And I just don't understand. Like, they literally don't even treat quarterbacks like players anymore. They're basically, you know, not like they shouldn't even be touched, which is like, I mean, I know it was a little excessive, but honestly, he was making a block because the guy was going towards the player. So like he needed to make the block. I don't understand it. I want players to be able to like play the game of football. You know, I know we're trying to protect quarterbacks, but to the point where, you know, they're not even allowed to like participate in the game, just kind of eliminates a lot of things. What are you thinking on this one, Ian?
Yeah, it's same thing. It's kind of a tough, you can't, that's one where the ref should have held his whistle. But regardless of that, South Carolina's main problem is that they didn't know how to hang on to the lead because their offense is predicated on, run with either Sellers or Sanders. And when it came down to it, when they were down, yes, Sellers had those big runs, but when they had to pass the ball, it became very predictable. And LSU, to their credit, they could have this could have gone really south really quick. But LSU's defense was able to dig their heels in. And not only that, the offense, you mentioned the running attack, it was really balanced, kept South Carolina on its toes, and they were able to take advantage. But man, that field goal, I thought for sure that was going to go in and we were going to OT. And it would have been great to see more of this game. This is one of those games where it's a shame one of these teams had to lose. But for South Carolina, they were just so dedicated to the run that when they had to pass it, they just didn't know how to get it going.
Okay, moving on. Memphis FSU. Dude, I cannot believe that they were down 20-3 in this game. And I'm even surprised that they got to a point where they were 20-12. Like, it was a one-score game and they had the ball last, but just pathetic, man. I mean, the Memphis's tight end was killing them. The entire highlight reel was just nothing but him making plays. And I know their linebacking play is terrible because I watched all of the BC game and all of the Tech game. So Florida State is defensively probably just as bad, maybe worse, because like some of these teams that Florida State's playing are not very good. At least like Florida played Miami, which is probably a decent team. Texas A&M, who knows if they're a good team or not. But either way, just this defense, Florida State does not look good. And DJ Ugalele, just terrible. And, 0-3 start. Just, it is, what the funny thing is, their buyout for Mike Norvell is like way higher than what Billy Napier's is. So it's like they're almost stuck with him for at least this year and next. So like, unless he turns it around, which at this point, I really don't envision it getting better because their recruiting has not been very good, considering last year they went 13-1 and they couldn't get like anybody to get on board. And so they are at this point where now they're stuck with a coach with a huge buyout. I think it's in like the 60 million range. And, they have no other choice. They have to stay with this and they have to hope that they get out of this. Their schedule is not helpful either, because there's still like a couple of games that are really tough. Miami for sure, and I believe Clemson as well. I think they have Cal, which Cal beat Auburn, so there's a chance they could lose. They could lose the Cal game, and then they're 0-4. Which if they're 0-4, man, oh man, that is not a good look. Your thoughts, and we're gonna move on.
Once again, this has been the thing. It's not only the fact of how inept the offense has been, whether it be like the passing play or just, the fact that nobody has good ball, sense or control. It's that the defense, again, can't stop the run, and they can't get off the field. Memphis had almost 40 minutes of possession time and outgained Florida State by almost 100 yards again. Florida State, again, multiple turnovers, the fumble on the second play of the game. I know Ugalele threw an interception. It was just, I remember saying in preseason, the Florida State, there's going to be a drop off because there's not as much cohesion as there was with this, but this is beyond unacceptable. Like for this one, like, this team is better on paper than Memphis. So the only excuse is that they are getting outcoached against Memphis, who you just hired. Norvell should know because he's from there. So I literally, one thing as a Gator fan, I'll say that was at least the saving grace, that us and Florida State can have like the mid-off bowl in November.
Oh God.
But I literally cannot believe, I will say, I have never there were years like 2017 or so.
Yeah.
This is the first time in my lifetime where I have seen both of these schools as down as I have ever seen them at the same time. It is insane.
Okay, moving on. Boston College, Missouri. Really good game, back and forth. Castellanos had a pretty good game, but had a couple of picks. Brady Cook looked really good. Luther Burden had a really good game. Um, Missouri passes their first test like we thought they would. They had 440 total yards and were pretty balanced. 22 first downs and 11 of 19 on third down. They're just a better team than Boston College. I know Boston College had just beaten Florida State, but this Missouri team is way better than Florida State. And there's just way more talent on this Missouri team. Honestly, what I was trying to see is their defense up to snuff compared to a better competition, because the first 2 weeks were lesser competition. They held their own, but they still obviously allowed points here. It ends up 27-21. But I think this Missouri team sets themselves up well, but they have – oh, man, this came off again. I don't get this. I have the AC going. I don't know what's going on. Why this keeps. This is annoying. Yeah, hold on a second, Ian.
Yeah. Oh, excuse me.
Okay, so sorry about that. So yeah, this team had their first test, sets them up well for the rest of the year, but they have a tough matchup against, I believe, Alabama and Oklahoma. So they more than likely are going to lose one of those games. I think they'll lose the Alabama game because I believe it's in Tuscaloosa. And but yeah, I mean, they should have a good year. They might get into the playoff. I mean, I think people are going to look really stringently on their lack of a tough non-conference schedule, and that may prevent them from getting in the long run. But at least they got a decent win here against BC. We'll see what BC ends up the rest of the year, but I don't think much of them the rest of the year. But what are your thoughts before we move on?
Yeah, this game went exactly how I thought it would. It's both play calling wise. Missouri did a good job adjusting Castellanos. They did try those swing passes. There was the fluky, fumble, then score a touchdown by BC. Honestly, usually when I see something like that, that's usually God telling you it might not be your day. But hey, Missouri was able to tighten the hatches. They were definitely good on the outside to keep Castellanos on those swing runs. And they obviously just, found a way to win out in that situation. I know they outgained BC by a lot. But all in all, Missouri, it's a shame. One of those games, it's a shame one of them had to lose, but Missouri, really, really good gutty win.
Okay, moving on to Notre Dame, Purdue real quick. Notre Dame wins 66-7. You got any thoughts?
I mean, that's kind of how you would want to respond after losing a game so bad. So exactly how you expect Notre Dame to play. They played angry, and they're going to have to play angry for the rest of the year.
Yeah, for sure. Oregon State, 49-14. Oregon pretty much in control of this the entire way. They were up 22-14 at half, and then just cruised in the second half. Dylan Gabriel probably solidifying his opportunity as a potential Heisman. 20 of 24, 291 on the ground, 2 TDs. He also had 64 yards on the ground, a long touchdown run. This team, I know they struggled that game against Idaho, but they look a lot better now. And there's a lot in front of them. Their Big Ten schedule is coming up, so we'll see what they're made of through that. But your thoughts, Ian?
Yeah, I remember watching the game and I was going, why couldn't they do this the last 2 weeks? Because this is the Oregon team we were expecting. Great on offense. They were able, Gabriel was able to be mobile in the pocket and, really good on the run, or on the in the air, and they were able to hold a very, Oregon State, obviously, it's a huge rivalry game, so they were going to throw everything they had at them. But all in all, this is what Oregon should play like for the rest of the year, especially if they're going to be competing for the Big Ten championship and a national title. They just got to keep this momentum going now.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Okay, Tulane, Oklahoma. Tulane was down 21-0 before half, but then Mensa came back, got a score before half. They got him to 24-13, and then a pick six made it 24-19. And then Mensa was picked again. God darn it. Hold on a second, Ian.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then what was it? Oklahoma was able to hold off. They picked off Mensa at the end, and then this Oklahoma team, Arnold looked pretty good running the ball. He had decent numbers, but sucks for this Tulane team because now they're 1-2. But they had a tough schedule. Kansas State and Oklahoma right in a row. I don't know who scheduled that, but like I said, Arnold had about 100 yards on the ground, 97 to be exact, 2 TDs, and this Oklahoma team has been solid, but they've been at home the entire first month of the season, and they'll get Tennessee next week. So we'll see. Your thoughts before we move on, Ian.
Yeah, Oklahoma, again, as good as Tulane was, Oklahoma was just the better team. Mensa did everything he possibly could, had a great passing touchdown midway through the game, but Oklahoma's lead was just too much to come back from. They did give him a scare, and that's what they were trying to do, but Oklahoma was able to kind of ease away from the win and get the W at the end.
So moving on to Washington State, Washington, back and forth game. Washington had the ball with like a minute or so left in the game. First and goal situation inside the 5, couldn't punch it in. Washington State with the huge stop. I don't know too much about this Washington team since Jed Fish has taken over, but Will Rogers is their quarterback. Former Mississippi State quarterback, had a lot of yards, 314 on through the air. They had a lot of offense, 452 yards, but just couldn't punch it in. They were 4 of 13 on third down and just struggled to be able to make plays on the Washington State side of the 50. So Washington State wins 3-0. That's good for them. What are your thoughts, Ian?
Yeah, Washington State, this was a really good win. It's a bit of a statement win. They come in, obviously it's the Apple Cup. Both same thing with the Civil War with Oregon State and Oregon. They don't like each other, so passions are high. But with Washington State, their schedule is looking pretty favorable for them. I know they got to play, obviously Oregon State, and then a bunch of Mountain West teams. I think they play Boise State in 2 weeks. That's going to be a real big game. But they looked great. This was like the real big test for them for the year, and they passed it with flying colors. They kept they were able to limit as the mistakes they had. I know they had 1 turnover, but they were able to just like will their way to the win against the Huskies.
Okay, West Virginia, Pitt. This is another back and forth game. Pitt was down 10 with like 3 minutes to go, came back, scored a late TD, got the ball back, went down the field again, scored. Just remarkable finish to this game. Both teams played very well. This is one of those games where it's a shame to see a team lose, but it's just the reality that someone has to win it. Just a great game back and forth. Whole scene for Pitt was, huge for them. Their quarterback, he had 300 yards in the air, 3 TDs. Garrett Green looked pretty good, except for the 1 pick during the game, and then the last pick where you can kind of ignore because that's when they're trying to make things happen near the end of the game. But evenly game, Yardage wise, it was 379 to 398. So very close in similarities. Just a very good game. The backyard brawl. It's not something they play often anymore, I don't think. Or do they? Do they still play this rivalry?
Not as much.
Yeah, so it's not as much. So it's a shame because these two teams hate each other. They're so close on that border. Your thoughts before we move on?
Yeah, I remember saying this. This game, like the one before it, is another example of like I don't care what conference these two are in or what their schedule is. They need to play each other every year. These
Yeah.
games are great. It's all good for college football, good for both programs. When you have teams that are this close and hate each other this much, it's going to be fireworks. And this was another one of those games. Holstein had the best game of his career by far. Like you said, the over 300 yards passing, the touchdowns, and he ran in the game-winning touchdown.
Yeah.
One thing I do want to add is with 3 minutes left, West Virginia was up 10, and they couldn't get Holstein down. And I'm like, dude, you've got to find a way to just, snuff them out while you can. So that was a tough way to lose it for West Virginia. But I mean, it's typical with these games with these two that hate each other. You're going to have, heartbreak as a part of the game.
Okay, 1 second. Okay, moving on to Utah State real quick. It was 38-21. The only reason I brought it up in the preview was because of Cam Rising being hurt. But they went down 14-0, and then Utah came back and ended up winning this one. So 38-21. So seemingly they're doing fine without him, and maybe he'll be back next week or whatever. I mean, just the curious case of Cam Rising and all of his injuries. But okay, moving on to UTSA Texas. Another one I don't have too much on because I didn't really think it was that big of a game because it was a blowout, 56-7. Your poor Roadrunners.
Yeah.
But Arch Manning actually came in because Quinn Ewers got hurt. Looks like an abdominal injury. But Arch Manning went 9 of 12, 223 for 4 TDs, and he had a long touchdown run as well. So I don't know. I mean, I still like Quinn Ewers. I would play him if he's healthy. But these people definitely want Arch Manning for sure. But we'll see. Okay. USF Southern Miss. Now, this game I didn't get to really watch because it's on ESPN Plus. I just was keeping track while I was playing basketball. And, they were down 14-0 at first, and it looked rough. But then the offense ended up outscoring them 49-10. So, they know how to play offense, and that's honestly why I wasn't too worried in that Alabama game because they're still going to be able to move the ball and do some things. It's just been defensively. Can they get better defensively? And I think they did show that in this game. They made some stops. They got some turnovers, which they've been a huge turnover plus team lately, which is great because that makes a huge difference in a lot of these games, especially closer games. I love this offense. I'm glad Alex Golish is here at USF. Byron Brown had a huge game, 19 of 29, 193 in the air, and I think another 72 on the ground. He had 3 total touchdowns. Kelly Joyner had a huge game, 2 huge TD runs. Naquan Wright had another huge game, a touchdown run. So 2 running backs over 100 yards. Sean Atkins had a really good game, 87 receiving yards. Just an overall good game. They were pretty dominant second half. Southern Miss didn't really do much. USF with 562 total yards, 369 on the ground, which is just crazy. 27 first downs, just remarkable. 81 total plays. Just a great game overall, setting themselves up for the next week for the Miami game, which they just announced that the student allotment sold so quickly that they're going to sell the 300 level tickets, which is the upper bowl seating. So this game could potentially be a full packed stadium, which would be awesome. I love when that happens for USF at Ray J. So we'll see. Ian, your thoughts?
Yeah, I remember when they went down 14-0 and the offense was kind of stuck in the mud, and I got really worried that this would be kind of a copy of the UAB game from the year before. But luckily, what this team has showed me, at least with this one, I remember saying Southern Miss was a big game because that's the most like on par opponent, because you open with Bethune-Cookman, that's a layup. Then you got to play Bama. Not really the most like really measuring stick kind of game. But Southern Miss was, and Southern Miss came out and jumped on them early. Luckily, they were able to wake up. It looked like they were very anemic early. They were able to come back, and the offense got rolling, especially on the ground on those sweep plays, read options, which I've been waiting to see this year, and they finally broke them out, and they were effective. They were able to keep the defense biting on the trap, and either Brown, Joyner, or Naquan Wright would cut on the counter and get a huge gain on there. Same with the passing game. I know Atkins scored or got a couple big passes. It was all in all, so far the best offensive performance this year by USF. We know how good this offense could be. It was great to see the defense. They looked rough in the first quarters, but once the second half started, they knew it was like put up or shut up time, and they did really good adjusting, especially with their coverage.
Yeah, and they win 49-24, so it's a huge win. Hold on a second. Huge win for USF, and obviously setting up next week, which I'm excited about because Miami's number 8 in the country as of right now, and it's a home game. There should be a lot of juice for this game. Byron Brown is going to be ready for it. Byron Brown against Cam Ward. You couldn't get any bigger in the state of Florida. It's a fight for best team in the state, which is a huge bragging right this year. And we'll see. I mean, I'm excited for it. Okay, last couple of them real quick, and then we'll get going. Ole Miss beats Wake Forest 40-6. Jackson Dart and future Florida coach Lane Kiffin. Jackson Dart goes off for 377 yards and 2 TDs. They had 650 yards of total offense. That's what Florida wants. That's what Florida fans want, is 650 yards of total offense, not the whatever that Billy's been producing the last several years, which has been atrocious at best. But this game was never really close. Wake Forest is just not very good. Okay, moving on. Georgia, Kentucky. I am amazed that this game went the way it did. It was close. It was back and forth. Kentucky had a lead for many minutes in this game. Georgia was lucky to win this game. Kentucky had the ball on the inside the 50 with 3 minutes left and just couldn't put it together to get that last field goal. And Georgia wins this one, but they lost their number 1 ranking because of how bad they looked in this game. So rightfully so. Kentucky is not a good team considering they came into this game off of a huge loss against South Carolina the week before. Your thoughts, Ian?
I'm only going to say a few words the same way I was saying it in the game when I saw it. You're on your side of the 50 with less than 2 minutes, and you have a chance to beat the number 1 team in the nation. And this is what I said. This was the story of the game. You're punting?
Yeah.
Dude, I don't you've got to go for it in that situation.
Yeah.
If it's too far for a kick and it doesn't make sense to punt, and because you don't even know how much time you're going to get with the ball back, and they didn't. And it was, they technically did. But yeah, that was such a bad, you want to talk about a bad coaching call, that's on Mark Stoops. You need to go for it in that situation.
Oh yeah.
Where you just have to be like, look, you had nothing to lose. You're Kentucky. Yeah. You just got blown out by South Carolina. Go for it. Right. You make it. I will tip. That's what I say. I will be more okay with you losing, trying to win, than doing that. And I was just very upset at Kentucky for that because it looked like they weren't even like wanting to try for the win. But agreed, Georgia. I don't know why every year they got to play. Like a few years ago, it was against Missouri. They didn't look good. Now they got to do this with Kentucky. So I don't know why they can't just like blow every team out. Like I know they can. But again, I've said it every year. If they play like this against these other teams, like when they go to play Bama, they're not going to win. Just straight up.
No, they're not going to beat Bama and they're not going to beat Texas. So they're going to get beat by both those teams. And they'll be lucky if they get into the SEC championship game, and they might lose that. But still, I still think they're probably going to get into the playoff, even with 2 losses. I mean, because right now their strength of schedule is a lot better than most teams. Okay, moving on. Mid-Florida beats TCU somehow. They were down 28-7 in this game, and somehow comes back and wins this game. Hold on. Okay, so Central Florida comes back and wins this one. Ian, your thoughts before we move on?
Yeah, this definitely had the billing of a Big 12 game because both teams had over 450 yards of offense. UCF coming back from that huge deficit. I think that's the largest comeback in their school's history. KJ Jefferson, we know how good he was at Arkansas, and he's showing that he hasn't lost a step at UCF. And for TCU, that is a brutal way to drop a game. And this is UCF. So like I said, this is UCF's, in my opinion, first official Big 12 win.
Okay. Last game, and then we're going to be done for the show this week. UCLA, Indiana. I'm sorry, Richard. This is a tough loss. I don't know how good this UCLA team is going to be now, seeing that I thought this was going to be an easy win for them. Indiana looked really good. They were moving the ball. They had a really good passing attack. They were really efficient. And that's where I thought UCLA was going to be strong, was their effectiveness against the pass. They're rushing the quarterback, forcing the quarterback into mistakes, but they could not stop them. And Indiana wins 42-13. Just a rough game all in all for UCLA. Ethan Garber's 137 yards, just terrible. Rourke for Indiana had 307 yards. Indiana just moved the ball at will, and UCLA only had 238 total yards. Just a rough go. This doesn't look good for the rest of the year. I don't know how Deshaun Foster is going to go out the rest of this year with this team. Hopefully he can turn around if he can figure things out. I feel bad for the offensive coordinator, Eric Bieniemy, because now this doesn't look good. And, they're not trending up. They're definitely trending down. And it looks like it's going to be at best a 5-7 season. So I feel bad for them because I thought they had the potential of like a 7-5, maybe 8-5 with a bowl victory, but now it just looks worse. Your thoughts, Ian, and then we're going to end it.
Yeah, it's like the two teams had like a Freaky Friday moment because IU's defense just absolutely smothered Garbers. Garbers had no time in the pocket, and that showed a weakness the UCLA's had now is that offensive line snaps way too quickly for Garbers to go through his progression. And now if you're going to have to adjust, and that's something we did not see throughout the game, which is on the coaching, is that you cannot hit those, home run plays. You have to go to either screens or, quick passes. And they just didn't. So really tough loss for UCLA. They got a lot of soul searching to do.
All right, I'm going to pause this and then we're going to end it. Just hold on a second, Ian. All right, that is the show. We'll have the week 4 preview on Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. You can find us on YouTube, which will be YouTube Live on those days. It'll be at Hater Radio. For Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and TikTok, it is at Hater_Radio. And then for Facebook, it is Hater Radio CFB. Ian, what are your socials before we go?
Yes, at YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter, it's at G_Gator_G.
Okay, like, subscribe, follow, tweet at us, comment, everything to help us out with the algorithm. We are officially over 500 subscribers as of today. So we're moving along. We're already 300 more than when we started the season. So we're moving along. I appreciate all of you who are listening, watching, following. And, it's just great to build this momentum for this. We love this brand. We love college football, and we love bringing this show to you guys. So follow us on Wednesday, and we'll talk about the games coming up for next weekend. And we'll see you then. Take care.